Hey guys, welcome back. I'm about to close the sound box on this parlor guitar here. So this is the first actually in a series of parlor guitars that I'm going to be producing. And so one might wonder how you take what you have learned and gained experientially from building other size instruments and how you apply it to basically a whole different body size as far as voicing is concerned. And in this case, it's a dramatically different body size. It's way smaller than what I'm used to. So my usual flexing of the X-brace arms and what I can gather from tap tone is not completely useless. It doesn't go totally out the window, but it's disrupted at least, and it's a bit more difficult for me to use that intuitive right-brained sense that I get from, say, an orchestra model size, which I'm far more familiar with. And I wanted to take a moment here to talk about something that it just occurred to me is very overlooked. I don't think a lot of people that build guitars do this at all, and it's super simple. Before I tell you what it is, let me just talk a little bit about the difference between right-brained and left-brained lutherie. So, as many of you probably know, there's a such thing as being right-brained and being left-brained. And really what I mean by that is being more dominant in your right hemisphere of the brain or more dominant in the left hemisphere of the brain. So people who are very left-brained are very analytical and logical and mathematical, so they think in numbers and spreadsheets and things like that. And more of the right brain, that's where your imagination comes in, that's where intuition comes in, that's where big picture, holistic thinking, that's all managed in the right brain. And some people are more right-brained and some people are more left-brained. I happen to be maybe just a little bit more right-brained, but I'm not on some far extreme. Like there are people who, you know, can't engineer their way out of a paper bag, but they can create beautiful art, and vice versa, right? You can get the opposite. Now, in the hypothetical extreme, both modes of thinking are limited. By hypothetical extreme, I'm talking about, you know, if someone was like 100% left-brained or 100% right-brained, which no one is. 100% left-brained person would basically be a robot, and 100% right-brained would be like someone on a perpetual acid trip. I don't know. So ideally, you're neither on a perpetual acid trip nor a robot. And so thankfully, we use both parts of our brain. But within lutherie, because it's a very difficult skill to learn, and specifically within voicing, when I say within lutherie, I mean within voicing, you really have to use both sides of your brain. You're straddling that line, I find, or at least ideally you are. So, you know, examples of left brain voicing is like Chladni patterns, using those, which is where you put some sort of loose material, sand. I saw someone do this with couscous, which was really cool. I saw that on YouTube. And, you know, using spectroscopy and things like that to create, to analyze tone, right? That's all left brain stuff. Doing deflection tests on your brace blanks before you install them. Another example of a left brain thing you might do. Right-brained voicing techniques include flexing the X-brace arms. There's no real meaningful way for me to calculate what I'm feeling here, so I'm using that holistic, that feeling, that intuitive part of my brain. So the limits of the right brain really are in the fact that you can only go so far with it, right? We can only feel so much, and with a lack of experience, meaning a lack of iterations of builds that we've gone through, right? If this is only your first, second, third, fourth, fifth guitar, you only have so much experience to draw upon. And then the limits of the left brain really are in that the world, and specifically the system of the acoustic guitar that we're building, which is nested in the real world, it is more complex than any spreadsheet or any data set that we're going to produce. So it's limited in that sense. Now, with that said, I find that many new builders are very intrigued by the left brain stuff and almost repulsed by the right brain. And it makes sense because within the left brain area of lutherie, there is sort of the promise that we can produce, say, a data set or some sort of methodology that will consistently produce a optimally resonant instrument. And the truth is that that stuff actually can get us very close to that. And within factory settings, I mean, there's a lot of great guitars being built out of factories using just pure engineering. There's no person at the end of the line that's voicing the top or anything like that. Within a lot of companies, there are actually much smaller companies, there is someone voicing, and that's sort of the optimal situation where you have the engineering side and the right brain side working in tandem. But that's definitely what an individual luthier should do, is they should nurture that right brain side while also paying attention to and reading up on what's going on in the sort of analytical world of lutherie, right? With deflection tests and, you know, using certain materials and spectroscopy and all that fun stuff. Science. But what I'm here to talk about is simply a right brain technique. Now, a lot of you guys might already be playing around with flexing, and that's great. And with tap tone, that's also fantastic. Those are the kind of things you're only going to get good at that by getting started. You need to start creating little data points or points of experience in your mind to be able to have some sort of relative knowledge of what's going on when you flex and when you tap. But one thing that I don't really see anyone doing is simply placing the top onto your rim set. Now, this is after I've carved everything and voiced it either all the way or close to where I want it, and after I've cut the notches for the brace ends to fit into. So this is literally ready to be glued. And as I'm voicing it and getting closer and closer, I will place this into those notches, exactly how it's going to be glued, and just give it a little CPR. That's it. So literally what I'm doing is I'm pressing right where the bridge is going to end up being, and I'm feeling some yield, or I'm really feeling some liveness, some life in this top. Okay? If this was completely unyielding, if I press on it and it feels like a hard wooden box or just like a block of concrete, then it clearly is not going to be a responsive instrument. And especially right at the point where it needs to be the most responsive, right? You just want to press on that bridge location. If I go up here to where this is where the transverse bar runs across, which is the end of our vibrational footprint, which means that everything above the transverse bar shouldn't be loose and responsive. I can feel the opposite thing. This is very unyielding, as it should be, right? This is the area of concern. This is the vibrational footprint. This is not the vibrational footprint and actually needs to be firm, right? To create a nice firm boundary to set your vibrational footprint. I've talked about that, the role of the transverse bar, a little bit more deeply in previous videos. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys. So literally as I was still working down this tone bar a little bit more. So I'll show you a little bit of that. I'll take a little bit more off. As I'm taking a couple passes on this, and if I was removing material off the X-brace too, I would be flexing the X-brace throughout this process. As I'm doing that, and as I'm tapping, I'll also, as I start to get close, just place it on there. It clicks right into place because the notches are already cut out. And I can feel, it's almost like a heartbeat. There's a pulse to this. This instrument could come alive if we put a bridge on it and strung it up and plucked that string. This top would be able to move. Now, of course, I know what some of you guys are saying, and this is you very left-brained people. You're saying, well, what are you feeling for? How much push are you supposed to feel? I can't tell you that. That's sort of the whole magic of the right brain, is that this is something that you just literally need to start doing. And on your first guitar, you're going to do this. You're going to feel stupid for doing it. But what you're actually doing is creating that first data point in your mind. The second guitar, you should still feel pretty silly, but maybe you'll start to go, oh yeah, the last time I did this, it felt a certain way, and you start to compare, right? And then you also compare it to what you are experiencing at the end of the build when you actually string it up and play it. Sometimes you build a dud, and sometimes you build an incredibly live instrument. And if you start doing this now and you just keep doing it, eventually you're going to have that moment where you build that incredible live instrument and you remember, oh yeah, I remember what that felt like before I glued the top down. Okay, a bit of a kind of off-topic ramble there, but I hope that makes sense to you guys and I hope it's helpful. I'll see you guys later. If you learned something here, please give this video a like and subscribe so you can be notified when I release a new DIY guitar making video. And if you want to really learn more, take one of my structured online courses at ericschaferguitars.com or register for a hands-on guitar building workshop here with me in Burnville, Pennsylvania.